All right, welcome everyone to the journey. I want to thank you again for another episode of a recovering person sharing their hope. Today we have Chase. I'm so grateful and we're blessed to have him here today and for him to have courage enough to be transparent and to share his pain and his hope. So with that, Brother Chase.
All right, thank you, Tracy.
Oh,
Honor and privilege to be able to share my story. I do get a little nervous at times sharing, so bear with me. But God has done so much for me in my life that for me to hold that back, I would be doing Him a disservice. So I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to be sober. I'm grateful to have God in my life. I've had a journey in the last few years that has been something that I could have never even dreamed of. God has done things in my life that I could not do for myself, and I'm just truly blessed today. I'll give you a little bit of what it was like, what happened, and what I'm like today, and hopefully God will kick in soon, but help me out here. But yeah, man. So it all started, I guess, back in college for me. It was just partying, having a good time, and things were great, and and then the party just never stopped for me. It got to a point where things were just getting out of control, and it got real bad there in the end. I won't give you the whole drunk-a-log, but I will tell you a little bit of the pain to qualify myself. I came into recovery at 26 years old. I wasn't an overnighter in recovery. I didn't walk in the doors of a 12-step fellowship and stay sober overnight. It took a little bit of pain, actually a lot of pain, for me to really grasp what they were telling me. But you know what? I got beaten down and broken enough and willing enough to be able to accept some help. And I think that's important too. They say pain's a great motivator, and for me it was. I pretty much got to a point in my life where I had lost pretty much everything that I owned. I was closest to death that I've ever been. And, I came back into the rooms of recovery, and then I asked for help. I barely made it back in, and thank God I did. I'm not originally, I live in York, Pennsylvania now. I'm not originally from York. I'm from New Jersey, but I pretty much couldn't go back to where I was living. I knew if I went back to the old people places and things, that probably wasn't a good idea for me. So I decided to take some suggestions of what they were telling me, and I started a new life in York, Pennsylvania.
Well, you don't have an accent.
No, well, a little bit, a little bit.
Jersey.
Yeah, Jersey. But it was the best decision I ever made. I was in a recovery house. I came to a recovery house. I was there for probably about a year and a half. I started doing some things different. I went through the 12 steps and got a God of my understanding in my life, and things started moving along. Things just don't happen overnight too. It's a lot of times I used to come in and I used to get all the materialistic things back and not the spirituality part of it, and then I would just walk, and then I would go back out and do the same damn thing over and over and over and over again. And it's not until I really got the spirituality part of it down, the really things started to stick, and my life started to change.
So let me ask you this. Looking at you and listening to you,
Mm-hmm.
if you would have told me that you went through some of the stuff that you've told me, I would have been like, get out of here.
Yeah.
You seem like you got it together.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that pain. Like what was going on in your life where it was so unmanageable, where you felt like, you needed to change?
That's a good question. I think about like my last day. Like we all look at our last day, and I'll paint you a picture of what that looked like. I'm damn near homeless. I'd lost everything I owned. I was 119 pounds soaking wet. I was in bad shape, man, real bad shape. And, if I get real vulnerable here, I wanted it all to end, dude. I wanted it all to end. And I didn't have the balls to kill myself, but I just couldn't live the life that I was living anymore. I mean, that's just it's just as simple as that. And you know, I got on my knees, said the first honest prayer that I've ever said in my entire life, and I said, God, please help me or just kill me. And you know, I get chills just even saying that, because it's, you know, I didn't know it then, but then, you know, God was working in my life.
Yeah.
And you know, I was able to get that last night. I think right shortly after that prayer, I maybe fell asleep for a little bit, and I woke up to a phone call to a treatment center. They're willing to take me in. And I was at that treatment center for 32 days. I don't remember the first couple of weeks. It was a complete fog. You know, I was close to the death that I've ever been. I was in bad shape, man, bad shape. And you know, from that point forward, I knew, like, you know, well, they say hindsight's 20/20, and looking back on it, I was really able to see, you know, God working in my life. But at that time, I didn't have a relationship with God. I didn't know who God was. I didn't know that God loved me and that He cared about me and had a purpose for me in my life.
Yeah.
You know, but looking back on it now, that I know that He did, and He took me from where I was to where I am today. And you know, you're not the first person to say that to me. That, you know, they say, Chase, you know, I look at you now and I'm not, you know, I don't see, you know, that.
Right. That's why sometimes people that are where you used to be, it's easy to judge you and go,
Yeah.
well, how can you relate to where I was?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you know, you look healthy.
Yeah.
You know, you look happy. You know, you look fit. But like you said, it's progress. It's, you
Yeah.
know, it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight, and it is possible.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
I think that the stigma too has a
Absolutely.
big part of it.
Absolutely.
You know, a lot of times I'm reluctant to share my story with people that just don't understand, because there's a huge stigma that goes on with recovery.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? They see people and, you know, they just look at them as criminals and bad people, and
Right.
and you know, we're not bad people.
No.
It's just we're sick and
Yeah.
we need help. And I
Yeah.
think, you know, when people's perception changes, I think that really helps them open their mind to, you know, these are, you know, this is someone's daughter, this is someone's brother, this
Absolutely.
is somebody's son, you know what I mean? And
That's right.
and it's really, I think more people have compassion about that are people that are directly or indirectly affected by addiction. But if you look at it now,
Yeah.
every
Who isn't?
family is
Yeah.
touched by
That's
addiction
right.
in one way, shape, or form. So for me to feel like, you know, apprehensive about telling my story, you know what I mean? It's, you know, I would be doing people a disservice,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
And that's, you know, even sometimes I feel like that today, but, you know, sharing my story I think is important, you know, and you know, I have other opportunities to share my story, just like you, Trace. You know, you know, you and I both go into York County Prison every week, and even though we have different purposes in that prison, you know, we still have one thing in common. It's to share a message of hope and recovery.
So talk about that a little bit. Like, how did you get started going into the prison, and why do you go in there?
So I got started in the prison about a year ago. It's been something I've been passionate about. You know, I think, you know, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations is a great opportunity for growth. You know, staying still, like we talked about before, like you can't coast uphill, you can only coast downhill, right? So an opportunity presented itself, a commitment presented itself for me to go into York County Prison every week. And, you know, I jumped right on it. I have the opportunity to go in there and share a message of hope and recovery every week, every Thursday night. And to be honest, man, it's the highlight of my week.
Yeah.
You know, it's so awesome to be going in there. And, you know, I tell people, like, hey, you know, I go into the jail every week. They're like, oh my God, like, you know, you go into the jail every
Yeah.
week. What's that
Yeah,
like, you
right,
know?
yeah.
But I'm like, it's
Help me.
freaking awesome, man. It's so cool. It's so cool. And I absolutely love it. And the guys really appreciate it there. And, you know, I'm no different than they are.
That's right.
You know what I mean? I've may only done, you know, a couple days in jail. You know, I haven't done any like long jail time, but I have something in common with those guys. I know what it feels like to be, you know, spiritually, mentally, and physically bankrupt,
Yeah.
and have no hope. And to be able to go in dark places too. You know, I go and I also do some humanitarian missionary work overseas.
Cool.
I've been to Ethiopia last few years in a row. Was there in 2015 and 2016, and due to, you know, COVID-19, our trip was canceled in July. But you know, I've also had an opportunity to serve overseas too with a medical team and through my church, and then that's been amazing experience itself. You know, when you look back on that day, that last day I was telling you about, like, where I wanted to literally just take my own life, and how spiritually, mentally, and physically bankrupt I was then, and then to be able to have God fill me up and you know, have a purpose and direction for me to be able to go over and help other people overseas has been remarkable. You know, I can go on and on for hours. There wouldn't even be enough time on this video for me to really tell you how many blessings that I've had in my life, man. I am so grateful. I've had so many wonderful things happen. You know, through all that time, it took some time to rebuild, to build a new life. It's not an overnight process, but if you trust God, clean house, and help others, and just keep moving your feet, things start to get better, man. Things start to get better. And you know, you know, at first it was hard. You know, when I came to York, Pennsylvania, I didn't know anybody. You know what I mean? I didn't know not one person.
So you came with a bag of clothes?
Bag of clothes, man. That was it. I had a trash bag full of clothes and I think $40 in my pocket. That was it. You know, now today I have, you know, a beautiful home. I have a beautiful wife. I have a 2-year-old boy. I have a great career. I have great friends in my life, good people. My mentor, my Bible study group that I'm a part of every Tuesday night, and then also now Tuesday mornings. So, you know, just so many blessings in my life, and you know, I almost get overwhelmed with it sometimes, you know, and a good overwhelming feeling, because, you know, they used to say, like, you know, you're gonna have a life beyond your wildest dreams. Right, you always hear that in the recovery rooms and stuff. I couldn't even have dreamt of the life that I have today.
Right.
You know, it just,
our heads would have exploded. And that's why God doesn't reveal it like that. You know. He knows we won't be able to handle it.
And I mean, you know, it was the first time in my life where I took suggestions too. Like I want to stress that. Like I was very hard-headed, very stubborn. Wanted to do it my way, lived on self-propulsion. You know, if I just got the right job or had the right car, or, you know, had the right girl or whatever, you know, things would work out. But it was the first time, like, I was just like, all right, God, like, I'm leaving this in your hands. I'm not, like, going to take control over the situation, because I've done that. I've come in to recovery before and I've taken control of the situation, or like say, I got this, or I wouldn't take suggestions, and then, you know, the same thing would happen over and over and over and over again. You know what I mean? It's not until I turn my life over to the care of God and say, all right, God, you can have it, right? Because my way
surrendering
is not working. And surrender's a hard thing. Like, I mean, you're a Marine, my dad's a Marine, my brother's a Marine, my grandpa's a Marine. I come from a military family, and that word surrender itself is non-existent.
That's right.
You know, and when you hear that, it's like, I'm not surrendering, and I'm not gonna, you know, admit that, you know, I'm 26 years old and I you know, I can't control this thing. I don't have the power to do it.
And I equated it to weakness.
Yeah.
You know, when people surrender, they're weak.
Oh, absolutely.
And just the opposite. But the thing is, like you said, it's not until you do it. Until you experience it. Because you can't really comprehend that and what happens. But it wasn't until I truly surrendered, then I experienced what that felt like. And it wasn't a weakness, it was a strength. You know, it was like I was letting go of myself. I was surrendering to myself. Is really what I was doing.
And that's not always an easy thing to do. And a lot of us, it takes a lot of pain. We have to be beaten down numerous times for us to just say, all right, that's it, God, take it. Right. And some of us don't survive it. Some of us take it to the grave, almost. You know, and it's just not always an easy thing to do is surrender. But I will say that it is one of the best things that I've ever done in my life, to be able to have God take over. You know, and I let God be the driving force in my life now for pretty much absolutely everything, actually. You know, I just let God take over. You know, we say in the Serenity Prayer, you know, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And, you know, when God's in the driver's seat, life's so much easier. But when I'm in the driver's seat, it doesn't end well.
No.
It doesn't end well.
We don't stay on the road.
No, we don't.
We want to take shortcuts.
Yeah, and we're filled with anger, resentment,
Oh, yeah.
remorse,
Judgment.
anxiety and
Yeah.
judgment and depression, and it just becomes a driving force. But when we let, God in the driver's seat,
Amen.
God takes over, and life gets better. And another thing too, it's, I also want to stress to people, and especially, that are watching this video, when you come into recovery, you're gonna still have problems and things that you have to overcome, right? We don't just walk into a recovery and say, all right, God, take over, and then all our problems go away.
That's right.
You know what I mean? We're gonna have things, when we have wreckage of our past that comes up, we don't just solve that all in one night, right? So we don't, go back and fix everything in one night. We all don't come back and take care of all the carnage in one day or a week or a month, and it takes years. I mean, but with God's help, and good sponsorship and staying close to the fellowship and having good people in your life, you start to tackle those things. You know what I mean? That heavy burden that we've been carrying around. And one of my old sponsors used to compare it to carrying around a bag of rocks, right? We come into recovery with this massive bag of rocks, and if we try to just tackle it all at once, it's just too much for us, right? And we fall. But if we slowly let God, into our lives and let God help us remove some of those rocks out of the bag, one at a time, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter,
right.
But we come in and we try to tackle everything over in one night, then it becomes overwhelming. Then what do we go right back to, right? The only thing that we know,
Right.
our comfort zone. This whole recovery and God thing is not our comfort zone, originally when we come in.
Right.
And I think that's important. And I think a lot of people don't stay around for the miracle, man. They unfortunately, they come in, they start doing the deal, they start moving their feet, and then at some point along the line, they either take their will back or it becomes too much, and then they just go right back to their comfort zone. And I get that, man. I get that. A comfort zone, to me, I hate change. You know what I mean? I hate it. I let God help me with that, but a lot of people fall back in that comfort zone, and then you never see them again.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, where's so and so? Oh, he didn't make it, or And you and I both know, Trace, and being around the recovery scene, I mean, we're losing people left and right.
Well, and that was the case with one of my friends last weekend. Was, good guy, Marine, and he really had a good heart. He really had a good heart. He wanted to help people, and he just started isolating himself.
Yeah.
And in my time in recovery, there's some patterns that folks who relapse have in common.
Yeah.
It's the honest, open, and willing.
Yeah.
The how. Those are very critical elements. But when people start to minimize what's going on with them, they're dishonest, not being open and sharing. They start isolating. They stop reaching out for help. That's when our addiction starts talking to us and starts isolating us, and the whole isolation thing. And that's really why I started wanting to do these testimonials, was going through this pandemic is we're being told we have to isolate.
Yeah.
And in recovery, we say the opposite to one another. We say, don't isolate. Stinking thinking. If you're by yourself, you're gonna start thinking these thoughts.
Yeah.
And so that's what really spurred me on to want to do this, is, for people to hear, whether you're white, black, gay, straight, Christian, Muslim, atheist, rich, poor, there's a common ground.
Yeah.
And addiction doesn't discriminate, but there is hope.
Yeah.
And like
absolutely.
you said, from where you were at, overdosing and the addiction and the hopelessness and the turmoil in your life, and then you started getting cleaned up, and then here you are coming to this strange town with a hefty bag of clothes and 220s in your pocket, and to be where you're at now.
Yeah, I hate even to say this sometimes because it sounds really corny, but there's sometimes, Trace, where I'll wake up, man, and I feel like I'm dreaming. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm in almost like heaven on earth, And I get chills just even saying that, because I wake up and my little boy's there and my wife's there, and things are okay, and my bills are paid, and I got some money in the bank, and I have God in my life, and it's I have my family in my life, and you know, just so many beautiful blessings, man. That sometimes I wake up, man, I'm like, I feel like I'm dreaming, you know, and it's, you know, even today, like it was such a beautiful day, man. And just sometimes, like, where I take a few minutes and just like look up at the sky, or I'll like look up and get to enjoy the sunshine and the breeze and the fresh air. And I don't think I was ever able to enjoy that before.
Right.
There was a lot of nice days,
Right.
but I wasn't in a state of mind where I was able to receive that,
Right.
you know, or could appreciate the beauty of today and being in the present.
Yeah.
You know, it's beautiful. I was just reading a book to my son last night, and it was like the first time that, like, you know, they say you have like moments of clarity, right? And I was sitting down, I was reading a book with my son, and like I was present. I was in the moment. I wasn't thinking about anything else, and I was reading a book to my little boy, and I was like, I was there, dude. I was present.
That's
And
cool.
you know, there were so many times in my life where I was physically there with you. Like, we could be
Right,
sitting
right.
to each, but my mind was other places.
Right.
You know, where am I going to get my next one?
Right.
Where, you know, my next drink I'm going to get from? Well, we got to do this tonight, you know. And it's just one of the best blessings that God has ever given me, is just to be able to be, you know, present in the moment.
Amen.
You know,
And there's probably some folks out there watching this that have children that are in some sort of addiction, and that shame and guilt, you know, is heavy on them.
Yeah.
Because they want to experience what you experienced last night.
yeah,
And they're blaming themselves. And, you know, for me, I kept trying to do it myself, and it always failed. But, you know, to hear you share that, you know, there's hope.
yeah.
There's hope, man.
Well, I think too, just piggybacking off what you said, if there is anybody watching this, and you do need help, you know, reach out for it. And, you know, there's a lot of help. Trace will help you. I'll help you. You know, whatever. We have a lot of resources, especially in the recovery community here in New York. We can get you plugged in. You know, whatever that takes. You know, there's tons of resources.
Yeah.
You know, you're not alone. You don't have to do
right.
this alone. You know, I get it. If you need to talk to somebody that's been where you're at now, or wherever the case may be, we've been there. You know what I mean? And I think that too is what you know, sets us apart and makes us really useful, is that we know what it's like to be hopeless,
Right.
To have no hope, to be
Right.
depressed, to be in that situation where you just feel like you're completely alone.
That's right. And
So-
that's why we like going into the prison.
Yeah.
Because we're going into
Yeah.
really the pits of hell,
Yeah.
where people are being controlled in every aspect,
Yeah.
and they're just feeling hopeless.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks in prison, it's not their first time,
Yeah.
and they don't understand how they can't get it right.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, I mean, but then again, you know, somebody shared, one of the guys who's in my drum circle in the prison shared that for him, whether he's in prison or out here in the streets, it's the same for him. When he's out here, he feels like he's still in prison.
Yeah.
Because he feels like he's imprisoned in himself. And so he doesn't have freedom either way, whether he's on the streets free, physically free, or he's in prison.
Yeah.
You know?
I talk to guys about that all the time. You know, being in York County Prison, I tell them, listen, you can be free on the outside, but not free on the inside. You know, and allowing God to enter your life, and whoever that is to them. You know, it's a God of your, you know, understanding. You know, whoever that is. You know, to be able to allow God to enter your life and to free you up. You know, I think inner peace and inner freedom. You know, because you can be in jail and have inner peace.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
But, you know, you can also be out of jail and not have inner peace.
Right.
You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
And, like, I don't want to be
That's
a
right.
prisoner to that anymore, you know?
That's right.
So I think that's important, too, you know,
Yeah.
to be able to be free on the inside, because,
Amen.
you know, that feeling in itself is like no other. It's better than any drug or drink that I've ever had, is having that inner peace.
And, you know, I think you would agree that coming into recovery, you know, I've shared many times, when I started recovery, I didn't get into recovery because I wanted to stop using. I liked getting high, and I liked drinking.
Yep.
The problem was I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to get
Yeah.
back to just smoking weed and drinking beer.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do the other stuff and steal and rob and all that. And so I came into recovery wanting to learn how to control my using. but it was being in that fellowship, in that group of people where I felt loved.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel judged. And like you said, it was because a lot of people understood where I was at.
Yeah.
And that was a comforting feeling, being with my own people,
Yeah.
so to speak, you know?
Well, that's another thing too. Surrounding yourself with good people, I can't stress how important that is, right? Because if we go back to hanging out with our old buddies, you know, they say you sit in a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's true. And I hate some of those sayings. I really do. But they're true. There's
right.
a lot of truth to
That's
them.
right.
And that's probably why I hate them so much. But surrounding yourself with good people. And I even tell guys that in the jail too. And, you know, I also help out in, you know, some other recovery houses and other ministries for people in recovery. And I always tell them, like, surround yourself with the winners. Surround yourself with good people, and do what they do. You know, get a sponsor, get a home group, you know, get involved with your church, be a service in your community, and have people in your life that you're accountable to, right? Because when Trace doesn't show up,
Right.
they're going to call Trace, hey Trace, man, where you been? You know, is everything okay?
Right.
You know, and that's so important, because it's easy for us to just isolate, right? Because nobody knows.
Right.
Well, you know, you don't get connections in the meetings, or you don't get connected and have a support group, and then it's easy for you to just fall right back. But if you have people there that, you know, you're held accountable to, and that really have your back, and that you can call and say, hey, I'm going through something. Like, I know I could call you and say, dude, I'm going through something, and I need help, man. And, you know, to be able to be vulnerable and to ask for that help is a blessing. But also having, you know, good people in your life is so important, man.
Yeah.
So important to have good people. And that's why I tell guys, when you get out of here, get involved with it. Whether it's a 12-step fellowship or your church or whatever you feel connected, get involved with something where you have good people that surround you.
Yeah.
Right? Because life's not going to be perfect when they get out.
Right.
Life's not going to be perfect or solve itself overnight when we get in recovery. But having good support around you, you know, helps you along, man.
That's right.
Helps you along. So, you know what, Chase, you're doing a great job, man. Just keep moving your feet, bro. You know, you're doing a great job.
Amen.
And sometimes that's what we need to hear. Maybe just a little bit of words of affirmation.
Right.
Because we've been beating ourselves up for how long?
Right.
You know, telling ourselves, oh, you're no good, you're a junkie, you're a drug addict, you're a drunk.
Right.
Nobody wants to hear from you. Nobody wants to, you know, deal with your misery. Nobody wants to deal with that, you know. And then those lies we believe,
Right.
and we don't reach out for help.
That's right.
And then the next thing you know, we get to see, you know, something happened, and then it's like, damn, man, wish he would have just reached out, man.
Right.
I wish it, because I would have helped him.
Yep.
You know, so
Man, there's, you know, I just appreciate you taking the time and your willingness, man, to share, you know, stuff that isn't, you know, a lot. You shared a lot of your hope and, you know, a lot of things like your family and a lot of good things, but you know, the pain is stuff that sometimes doesn't feel good to talk about.
Yeah.
And you know, you shared on multiple occasions about the hope. You know, and you know what I would share for anybody watching, that maybe you've relapsed, you know, and you're sick and tired to keep coming back, you know, or you don't even know anything about recovery. But one of the things that stops you, one of the lies, which you just talked about, Chase, is the lie that, well, everyone else has their own stuff going on with them, man. I don't want to burden them with my problems. I just need to figure out what I need to figure out and take care of it.
yeah.
And that's a lie. That's a lie straight from the pit of hell, is that we have to do it ourselves. So, you know, don't give up.
Yeah. Definitely.
Reach out, talk about it. If you've never experienced reaching out and talking about it, I'm telling you, trust us when we say this. It's like you're carrying 100 pounds on your shoulders, but when you talk about it, you got maybe 25 pounds on your shoulders. It's just an incredible, magical thing that happens, that when we speak to another person that can relate to what we're going through, the load is lightened, you know, and there is hope. Don't give up. You know, there's a gentleman who has a YouTube channel, and on the channel, he talks about he attempted suicide over at the Golden Gate Bridge, which is supposedly the #1 place to commit suicide in the country. Thousands of people have jumped to their death. Well, there's about 100 people who have survived. He's one of them, and they have a support network. And something that stuck out to me was, he said, in all the people that survived, out of the 1,000 people that jumped there, they all had one thing in common. And that was, as soon as they left the bridge, they all had the same feeling, regret.
Regret, yeah.
That's powerful. This is somebody
Yeah.
who jumped. He was hopeless. And everybody who survived had the same feeling, and that was the feeling of regret. Just think about all the people that did commit suicide and killed themselves. They probably had that same feeling.
Yeah.
So listen, it doesn't matter how dark things are, what you've done, there's always hope, you know. And so we just like Chase said, you can pick up your phone and you can Google any addiction: sex, porn, drugs, alcohol, food, gambling, whatever it is. There's support groups out there. There's phone numbers. There's hotlines that you can talk to somebody. Or locally here, like, you know, he just got done offering himself up, you know, and obviously you guys know I'm always available. So there's a lot of people out there, and part of what this does is it speaks to that lie that there are not people out here that understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
There are. And he's a good example. I mean, you hear his story about where he was at, and now he's waking up thinking it's a dream. You know, if the old you and the old me were sitting across the picnic table here, they both would have gotten up and ran away.
Yeah.
Because they would have thought,
Oh, yeah.
who are you guys,
Yeah,
man?
yeah.
You know, and,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty, is it doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen.
Yeah.
So hang in there. Don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle. Take it one day at a time, and reach out. All right, brother, I appreciate you
Yeah, man.
sharing your
Thanks for
story.
having me. Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time. All right, peace, everyone.
Thanks, guys.